Hey there guys, you're once again tuned in to Pharaoh's Vessel. My apologies, it's been a while since I last done an upload. Health issues, among other things, have taken effect, and obviously I haven't actually been able to get near a camera and stuff to get it done. But in the meantime, what I have done is I've actually put together about 4 or 5 decks. Starting with the one in front of you, which is my version of a vampire deck. So, without further ado, I'm going to jump straight into this video, get this out the way, and then we can do the other 4 and get them out the way, and then we can get them uploaded, etc, etc. Hopefully then you'll get watching them and stuff. There will be a competition coming shortly after the 4th video, so keep your ears open for that. You might win a nice little present from myself, the Pharaoh's Vessel. So without further ado, we're going to jump straight into this one, Vampire deck. Here we go. So first up with the vampire deck, I bring you the extra deck. I'm going to do this first so they can get them out of the way. There's only the 5 cards. Starting with the fusion on the right hand side is the sea monster of Theseus. Basically bring that out, all you need is 2 tuners. I don't think I've actually put any tuners in yet, but we'll have a look as we go on. I've just thrown it in because it looked pretty at the moment. Next up we've got Crimson Knight Vampire Bram, which, to bring out that XYZ monster, requires 2 level 5 zombie monsters, and you can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon that target to your field, but only that monster can attack for the rest of this turn. You can only use the effect once per turn. Once per turn during the standby phase of the next turn, after the card you controlled was destroyed by your opponent's card and sent to the graveyard, special summon this card in defense position. And finally then we've got Dampier Vampire Sheridan, which, to bring him out, is basically 2 level 6 monsters. If you use a monster with a level that is owned by the opponent for the XYZ summon of this card, treat it as a level 6. Once per turn you can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 card your opponent controls, send it to the graveyard. Once per turn, if a monster card is sent from the field to your opponent's graveyard by a card effect, or a monster is destroyed by battle and sent to the opponent's graveyard, you can detach 1 material from this card and special summon 1 of those monsters to your field in defense position. So basically I run 2, 2 and 1, or 2, 2 and maybe 1, depends on if there's any tuners and stuff in there. But yep, that's the extra deck to start with. Moving on now, we'll have the monsters. So for the monsters we have 1 copy of Vampire Genesis. This card cannot be normal summoned or set. This card cannot be special summoned except by removing 1 Vampire Lord on your side of the field from play. Discard 1 zombie type monster from your hand to the graveyard to select, and special summon 1 zombie type monster from your graveyard with a level less than the discarded zombie type monster. You can only use this effect once per turn. Nice little 3000 by 2/1. Next up we have 3 copies of Vampire Scarlet Scourge. There it is. If this card is normal or special summoned, you pay 1000 life points and target 1 vampire monster in your graveyard except Vampire Scarlet Scourge. Special summon it, but it cannot attack this turn. You can only use this effect of Vampire Scarlet Scourge once per turn, and at the end of the battle phase, if this card destroyed any monster by battle, special summon them from the graveyard to your field. I run 1 copy of Vampire Red Baron. If I push him up slightly, you can actually see see his effect. Once per turn you pay 1000 life points, then target 1 monster your opponent controls and 1 other vampire monster you control. Switch control of those monsters. At the end of the battle phase, if this card destroyed any monsters by battle, you can special summon them from the graveyard to your field. 2 copies of Vampire Fraulein. When a monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. You can only use this effect of Vampire Fraulein once per turn. Once per battle, if the zombie monster battles an opponent's monster during that damage calculation. Quick effect, you can pay life points in multiples of 100, maximum of 3000. Your battling monster gains that much attack defense during that damage calculation only. At the end of the battle phase, if this card destroys any monster by battle, you can special summon them from the graveyard to the field. I have to excuse the bad reading, I do apologise. I've always suffered like that, as you know. So next up we have 3 copies of Vampire Lord. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, declare one type of monster, spell or trap. Your opponent sends one card of that type from the deck to the graveyard once per turn during your next standby phase. After this card in your possession was destroyed and sent to the graveyard by opponent's card effect, special summon this card from the graveyard. Nice little number there, look. 2 copies of Vampire Grimson. If a monster you control be destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you could pay 1000 life points for each monster that would be destroyed. Instead, you must protect all monsters that would be destroyed if you use this effect. At the end of the battle phase, if this card destroyed any monster or monsters by battle, you can special summon them from the graveyard to your hand. 2 copies of Shadow Vampire. I thought I had 3. Nope, definitely only 2. Cannot be used as material for an XYZ summon, except for the XYZ summon of a dark monster. So basically, your Dampier and Bram as well. You can special summon one dark vampire monster from your hand or deck, except Shadow Vampire, but monsters you control cannot attack for the rest of this turn, except that specially summoned monster. I have 3 copies of Vampire Lady. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, declare one card type, monster, spell, trap. Your opponent sends one card of that type from a deck to the graveyard. There is also, start overlapping, 3 copies of Vampire Sorcerer. If this card in your possession is sent to the graveyard by opponent's card, you can add one dark vampire monster or one vampire spell trap from your deck to your hand. You can banish this card from your graveyard. One dark vampire monster you normal summon this turn can be summoned without tributing. 2 copies of Vampire Retainer. If this card is special summoned, you pay 500 life points. Add one vampire spell trap from your deck to your hand. If this card is in your graveyard, you can send one vampire card from your hand, face up, or face up from the field to the graveyard. Special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use the effect of Vampire Retainer once per turn. There's 3 copies of Vampire Familiar. If this card is special summoned, you pay 500 life points. Add one vampire monster from your deck to your hand, except Vampire Familiar. If this card is in your graveyard, you can send one vampire card from your hand or face up field to the graveyard. Special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use the effect of Vampire Familiar once per turn. I've got 1 copy of Vampiric Koala. If this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by battle with a monster, gain life points equal to the battle damage inflicted. And then just to round it up, we've got 1 Mystic Tomato, 1 Pyramid Turtle, and 1 copy of Scapegoat. The reason I throw Scapegoat in there is it's great because you can special summon any number of Black Sheep tokens, zombie type, dark, level 1s, 0 attack, 0 defense, but as you know, that card there states that you can't not use them as tribute, so you can, in my eyes. But yeah, that wraps it up with the monsters. Next up, we've got the spells. So, the spells. I like to run 2 copies of Vampire Kingdom. If I can get them in place. There we go. Basically, zombie type monsters gain 500 attack during damage calculation only. Once per turn, when a card is sent from your opponent's deck to the graveyard, target 1 card in the field, send 1 dark vampire monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and if you do, destroy target. I like to run 3 copies of Vampire Desire, which has 2 effects. You can either target 1 face-up monster you control, send 1 vampire monster from the deck to the graveyard with a different level from that monster, and if you do, the targeted monster becomes the level of that send until the end of the turn. Or target 1 vampire monster in your graveyard, send 1 monster you control to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon the targeted monster from the graveyard. You can only activate 1 desire per turn. We have 3 copies of Vampire's Domain, which once per turn you pay 500 life points. During your main phase this turn, you can normal summon 1 vampire monster in addition to your normal summon set. If this card leaves the field, you can only gain this effect once per turn. Each time your vampire monster inflicts battle damage to your opponent, gain the same amount of life points. I like to run 3 copies of Monster Reborn. Obviously we know what they do, so I'm not going to need to explain them. There's 1 Call of the Mummy, which states if there's no monster on your side of the field, you can special summon 1 zombie type monster from your hand. There's a Pot of Avarice. I have Twister. And to finish off your spells, Sword of Dark Destruction, which basically gives attack of 400 and decreases your defense by 200 on a set monster for it. So yeah, there's your spell cards. Moving on now, next we have your traps. So here is your traps. Starting you off with 3 copies of Vampire Awakening. Special summon 1 vampire monster from your deck, but destroy it during the end phase of the turn. You can only activate 1 Vampire Awakening per turn. 3 copies of Vampire Domination. When a spell, trap card, or monster effect is activated while you control a vampire monster, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Then if it was a monster card, gain life points equal to its original attack. You can only activate 1 Vampire Domination per turn. I like to run 2 copies of Mirror Force and 1 copy of Drowning Mirror Force. I also like to have 2 copies of Sakuretsu Armor, 3 Acid Trap Holes, normal trap holes, 1 copy of Acid Trap Hole, and some old favourites that I've managed to get my hands on again. The Scrap Iron Scarecrow and the Scrap Iron Statue, which are normally quite helpful when it comes to it. So yeah, there you go guys, that's the Vampire deck profile, the Vampire deck that I've thrown together. Don't make the same mistake I did and end up buying a load of the packs and then doing a load off of eBay as well, because you end up with, like, I've got half a box for the cards that you've already got. But yeah, obviously non-competition, should hold its own in a normal bout, normal duel. So, you know, give it a try guys, you never know, you might enjoy it. But as for now, I'm going to leave it there, and once again, like I said, I apologise for not posting a video for a while, but I got a few videos coming up shortly, starting with this one, which was the Vampire deck profile. Ciao for now.